Welcome to Viewing and Reviewing, where I pull older movies off the shelf, watch them, and let you know if I believe they're worth your time to watch or not. I'm Bobby T, your online video store clerk, and I'll be searching through my VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray collection to find titles that I think may be interesting to review. In today's episode, I'll be reviewing 1999's The Legend of 1900, directed by Giuseppe Tornatore and starring Tim Roth, Pruitt Taylor Vince, Melanie Thierry, and Clarence Williams III in a wonderful cameo as Jelly Roll Morton. Let me read you the DVD cover. From the director of the Academy Award-winning Cinema Paradiso, this magical fable from a bygone era movingly tells the tale of an extraordinary man who lives a remarkable life without setting foot on land. Abandoned atop a piano and raised by a lowly crew member in the bowels of a luxurious cruise ship, the boy's dubbed 1900 for the year he was born. As he grows up, he's drawn to the piano and discovers he has an amazing gift for creating music. The prodigy dazzles the passengers, and his reputation spreads around the world, with record producers clamoring to capture his magic. But he refuses to leave the ship to pursue promised fame and fortune. Only when he spots a beautiful girl on board does he become determined to join the outside world and live a normal life. But is that the life he really wants? With a beautiful score by Academy Award nominee Ennio Morricone and heartfelt performances by Tim Roth as 1900, Pruitt Taylor Vince as his trumpet player pal, and Clarence Williams III as jazz legend Jelly Roll Morton, this lyrical, transcendent film will strike a chord in your heart. Well, this is somewhat of a bittersweet review for me. I remember having to track down this DVD when I'd first heard of it, not only because it was from the director of the amazing Cinema Paradiso, but because it starred Tim Roth, who's one of my favorites. And it had a score by Ennio Morricone, who also is one of my all-time faves. Once I sat down to watch it, I was enchanted by this simple story about an orphan who spent his entire life on a cruise ship without ever setting foot on land, yet becoming the best piano player in the world. I remember loving this film. But that leads me to the bittersweet part. When you fall in love with a magical film the first time you watch, it can sometimes lead to disappointment when you watch it again and see all the flaws you missed the first time around. It's like waking up on Christmas morning to all the wrapped presents, then opening them and seeing what's inside and being transfixed by its contents, then wrapping those same gifts and opening them again tomorrow. Sometimes it's still wonderful, and sometimes it's a letdown. It'll never have that same magic. And there are plenty of comparisons to a very famous cruise ship from the turn of the century. Now, to be fair, this film is not Titanic, nor did it aspire to be, although they are set in the same era. They're two completely different stories. This is a legend story, not real life. This was a much smaller, deeply personal tale set on a romantic luxury cruise ship at the dawn of the new century, thus the name of the film and the main character, 1900. Tim Roth plays a curious 1900 character with a distance, passion, and a slight lack of warmth that most orphans who never have a deeply grounded family unit would show in a unique situations as his. That his character would grow up to become a world-famous musician is somewhat difficult to believe, but it's not implausible. What's most unbelievable, though, is that if he truly is so famous as to cajole the most famous real-life jazz musician in the world, Jelly Roll Morton, who played majestically by Clarence Williams III in the best scene in the entire film, makes it that much harder to believe that 1900 would simply be forgotten by film's end when the entire world knows he exists on this one ship. But to be honest, the hardest time I had with the film this time wasn't the story as much as the nearly entire focus on second banana trumpeter played by character actor Pruitt Taylor Vince. For those of you asking who that is, he's the crazy-eyed serial killer in the end of the John Cusack film Identity. I never want to draw attention to someone's imperfections since I have many myself, but I have to say that with Vince's distracting moving cross eyes, it became a sheer distraction whenever they zoomed into his face, which they did a lot. Now, I'm not being mean or cruel here. I'm one of the least mean people that I know. But I also realize in a visual medium, they should have either pulled the camera back or chosen a different actor, since the character could have been played by literally anyone in Hollywood at the time without that distraction. And not to throw cold water on the actor, but he obviously couldn't play the trumpet either. But to be fair, Tim Roth can't play piano either. but Vince also wasn't compelling enough a character to spend nearly 2 hours, which kind of makes my point. He's spinning a legendary tale about a potentially world-famous phenomenon for the entire film, but by the end I start to wish for a voiceover narration instead. But beyond that very large negative, I will say they tried to get the romance of the era and the 1900 character right. We do get to feel his passion for music. There are a few scenes littered throughout where we get a glimpse into 1900's inner psyche to explain where his raw and original music comes from, as he plays people's idiosyncrasies at the piano for us to ponder. And the most passionate moment in the film is when 1900 sees his improbable dream girl in a mist on the deck of the ship as he's recording a demo record, only to watch her vanish into the same mist moments later was also the highlight to the film. Although I didn't realize until the second viewing there was an important plot point to the girl that I didn't realize until she disappeared into the crowd. Unlike Titanic, this story isn't about eroticism. It's a story of unattainable love for characters too different to coexist in the same lifetime. And I love tragic love stories, but this one felt a little flatter than it could have. It was a wonderful effort, but the ultimate statement I'd make about this film is it just felt incomplete. I'm not sure what's missing. Maybe there are scenes on the cutting room floor. Maybe it's the lack of a real antagonist, since pretty much land is the only thing stopping 1900 from living a rich and full life. And that's the tragedy? I can't put my finger on it, but it's missing something. And a film about a lost soul should have a soul. And the ending chose the easy way out instead of giving the audience a satisfactory finish to the film. Now, I'm not saying every film needs a Hollywood ending. That's why Greeks were so good at tragedies. But a poetic ending doesn't always mean a good ending, unfortunately. So, my overall report card of the film, it looks like this. Does it stand the test of time? This is kind of a tough one. It's set at the turn of the last century, so it's already a dated subject matter. I'll give it a B+, since it doesn't feel old. It's got the appropriate atmosphere, as does Titanic, but it's the story that takes it down a notch, and that really is the point. Story. Unfortunately, it is here that they kind of failed. I'll give this a C+. It's not a bad story. A baby is accidentally left on a ship in the year 1900. I mean, who'd abandon a child on a luxury liner when tickets cost nearly a year's wages back in the day? Only to be found by some schmo working in the bowels of the ship. The kid, without a birth certificate, is raised inside the ship until his dad dies when the kid is 8. In the kid's grief, he stumbles onto a piano and everyone realizes he's a savant that can play by ear, and so begins his career entertaining the guests. But that's where it went off the rails, was when they brought in Jelly Roll Morton for a worldwide showdown, with the entire press corps taking photos, and I'm sure writing columns about the ship-bound prodigy, then promptly forgetting him from the moment they landed the ship. That's also what makes the ultimate ship destruction a mere decade later, without anyone even knowing he exists, all the more puzzling. The movie felt contrived in all the wrong places, and I think that's what harpooned it in this viewing. The cast. I'll give this a B-. Tim Roth is excellent as the ultra-talented pianist, even if he can't play a lick in real life. He's mesmerizing to watch in this role, and I believed his character, albeit the ending wasn't satisfying. But that's not his fault. Melanie Thierry was angelic in her all-too-short portrayal of 1900's passion of lost love. She's the closest thing to getting him off the ship, but even she can't win over his fear of land. The rest of the cast is passable, but nothing special. The glaring misstep, and quite honestly one of the worst options the filmmakers could choose, was Pruitt Taylor Vince as the main character telling the entire legend of 1900 to anyone who would listen. Watching that schlubby guy with the wonky eyes moaning and weeping and shouting and pretty much overacting like a sad puppy who lost his favorite shoe, it got old really quick. It's a sad tale for sure, but we got overkill from that performance, and that's a shame. The cinematography. For a film that had a budget of $9 million only 2 years after Titanic had a budget of $200 million, and they have eerily similar feel, means the filmmakers did a really good job. I'll give this an A-. The costuming felt real. The sets felt like an antique cruise liner, albeit we only saw a few decks, but that was enough. Most of the film was shot indoors, so there wasn't much need for at-sea landscapes, but they tried to make those believable as well. They could have done this a whole lot worse, so they deserve a better grade. The music. Folks, it's Ennio Morricone. I'd normally say that, just to go out and buy the soundtrack, since almost all of his scores are really that good. But that being said, this isn't his most inspired arrangement, although the scene where 1900 composes lyrical moments by matching idiosyncrasies of passengers is really good. I'll give this an A-. As perfect a duel as the 1900 versus Jelly Roll moment is, the climax to the scene felt more banging and volume busting than actual music artistry. But then again, I don't have that kind of ear, and I could be missing something. Plus, they make a huge deal about the lost record and played it several times, but it's clear in the scene where they recorded it that the song started in a different place than the record starts. The rest of the music is beautiful and fitting for the era. I just wish I would have had a little more, soaring than it did, and edit the sound properly on the record. So, based on the above scores, if you'd asked me after the first time I saw this film, I'd have given it a solid A-. Unfortunately, after watching it this second time with my reviewer glasses on, I'm only giving this a C+, or a 6.5 out of 10, which is better than average, and this film is better than average, but there are too many holes to overcome. I read that there's an original 2-hour and 45-minute version out there. My DVD here, it's only 2 hours and 4 minutes, so there are 40 minutes out there that I haven't seen. Maybe that would be better. But to be honest, even this version seemed a bit of a drag at times. If they would have cut maybe 10 minutes off it, it would have been for the positive. So as much as I'd love to recommend this film highly, I can only say it's worth a watch, but then forgotten not long afterwards. This is a film that had a whole lot of wonderful pieces, but when seen as a whole, it just didn't measure up as much as its potential. Some films should only be viewed once and romantically remembered as a flawed but beautiful masterpiece like this one, because watching it a second time, it removes that magic and turns it into just a film, and this is that kind of a film, unfortunately. Now, normally I'd list a few films like this one, but the closest to Legend of 1900 would actually be the chambermaid on the Titanic from 1997, which doesn't have the budget or soundtrack of this film, but it's free on YouTube with subtitles and is a good free watch. So I'll leave a link in the description below, but this is a film about musical prodigies and one musical mystery mixed in, so I'll recommend these films instead, which I hope to review on this channel in the near future someday. First is August Rush. This is one of my personal favorite films. A genius orphan is torn from his parents at birth, so both parents don't know he exists. 12 years later, this musical prodigy, who has never played an instrument in his life, is thrust upon the world in the New York underground, where he learns to play and write music so advanced he finds himself at Juilliard by sheer accident, all the while searching for his parents he's never met, while the parents slowly realize their lives intertwined in more ways than they can imagine. Plus, it has Robin Williams in a rare antagonist role, and the soundtrack is unique and lovely to boot. Second is Rudderless, which is a surprisingly unknown film about an ex-musician father who, after a tragic on-campus shooting where he loses his only son, loses his job and possibly his sanity before discovering his dead son's cache of unpublished music. In a fit of drunkenness, the father plays at a local open mic night that compels a few local musicians to team up with the reluctant father to form a band to play some pretty inspiring music, until a shocking twist halfway through the movie that takes us in a direction we were not expecting. And if you're going to watch this film, do not read the reviews or they give the twist away. It's better to go in blind like I did. And lastly, the Red Violin. This most famous and controversial violin in the world is the legendary Red Violin, and it's going up for auction and has the richest of the rich excited to purchase this mesmerizing prize at all costs. However, the auction house isn't sure if it's the genuine article, so they commissioned Samuel L. Jackson as the best in the business to track down the origins and guarantee that this is the true legend. However, as the story of this priceless violin's origins and history reveal tragedy upon tragedy befalling all previous owners, Will we find out whether this mysterious artifact with the otherworldly sound is the real deal? All three of these forgotten films are worth watching if you get the chance. They are all rated over 7.5 on imdb.com with over 15,000 ratings each as of this recording, which is very high praise. Well, that's it for The Legend of 1900. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click the like button below. If you want to keep up to date on my future reviews, please click on the subscribe button below. If you want to purchase The Legend of 1900 on DVD, or if you wish to purchase any of the other titles I've mentioned earlier, please follow the Amazon links below. If you have any suggestions for movies you'd like me to review, please leave a comment below and I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be sure to help others in need because it's always the right thing to do. Have a great week.